Is my voice clear, or is there any wind sound in the background?
The wind sound is here.
Is that better? Or
Yes. Yes.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start on bail. It's 3:06 now. Okay, let's start on bail. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now, bail, the definition of bail. Can anybody give me a definition of bail, please? And someone? Anyone? Definition of bail? I need to call names. Kauthar, definition of bail, please.
Okay, sir. Bail is a security taken from a person to appear on a fixed date before a court. A security taken from a sureties.
Wow. Which one, surety or security? Two different things there.
Sureties.
Sorry?
Sureties.
Can you repeat that, please?
A bail is a security taken from a person, which is a sureties, to appear on a fixed date before a court.
Who's supposed to appear? The surety or?
The accused.
Okay. Now, based on Yusuf bin Muhammad against PP, did anybody read that case? Yusuf bin Muhammad against PP, bail was defined by Justice Abdul Malik Ishaq as bail in simple language means security taken from a person to appear on a fixed date before the court. Now, the meaning of the word bail, as ordinarily and commonly understood, is to set free a person who is under arrest, detention, or is under some kind of restraint by taking security for his appearance. That would be the definition of bail in a case law. Now, what Kotha just gave us just now was the more on the terminologies used in bail topics. Now, terminologies in bail topics usually would involve three terminologies. And part of it has been covered by Kotha just now. Bond, one terminology is called bond, which is an instrument whereby a person binds himself to do or not to do certain things, which in the context of bail, which is our topic here today, would be to ensure the due appearance of the person who he stands as sureties. See? Now, surety meaning the person who guarantee the appearance of the arrested person on the hearing date. Surety is also known as a guarantor. In practice, we call it bail law. Seldom in practice you call them surety or you call them guarantor. Person who pays bail for the appearance of the accused is usually referred to as bail law in practical purposes. Now, security is the amount of money that is going to be forfeited if the accused does not appear. In practice, we do not call it security, we call it bail, simply just called bail or bail money. Now, bail under the CPC, for our all intent and purposes, is that main issue under CPC when it comes to practice. First question that you should ask yourself when your client is charged in court is whether his situation, which is the client's situation, would attract bail or would it not attract bail? I mean, would he be available to be bailed or not? Now, this under the CPC would depend on the type of crime which your client has been accused to have committed. There are three types of crime which involves bail, where bail may or may not be granted. Now, under the all of this comes under the CPC. You see, now the first one is the kind of crime which is called the bailable offences. In the CPC, it is stated in section 387, where under this situation, bail for bailable offences, bail must be given. We'll go into that later slightly in detail, but for the moment, we'll go on the general crimes which attracts bail or which may not attract bail under the CPC. The first one will be bailable offences under section 387, where in this situation, which involves bailable offences, bail must be given by the court. And the second one would be the non-bailable offences, which falls under Ain Farhana,
Yes.
under which section does non-bailable offences falls under?
Section 388.
Can you read that to us, please? Or interpret to us. No need to read, just put it in your own words. What is section 388? Can you?
Yes. For non-bailable offences, it provides three types of non-bailable offences. The first one, there are no reasonable grounds to believe that the accused is guilty of the offence, but got enough ground or sufficient grounds for further inquiry, meaning to say that it can be released on bail. For the second one, have a reasonable ground to believe that accused is guilty, so accused shall not be released. And the third one, accused is under 16 years old or any woman or any sick or infirm people. Hence, the court may give bail even though have grounds to believe that the accused is guilty. That is under section 8.
Meaning?
888.
Compare this 388 to 387. What would be the difference then?
So can I answer?
Yes, Filza. What would be the difference between 388 and 387 then?
387 the offence committed has the choice to for the bail to be granted, but for 388, the offence committed by the accused him has made the right to be bail taken from him, but it may be given under discretion of the court.
May be given meaning the court has.
The court
Has
has the
discretion.
power to give it.
Yes, that's the difference between 387 and 388. Under bailable offence section 387, bail must be given. Court has no other choice but to give bail, because we will go through the 387 later where the word shall is stated there. But for under 388, accused has no right to bail. On the general terms, what section 388 says is that on the surface of it, you have no right to bail. But the court has the discretion to give it or not to give it, depending on those three things that Ain has just read to us just now. Okay? So in other words, or not to give under 388, as compared to 387, which they have no discretion not to give. They are bound to give. Now the third one would be the unbailable offence, which would means specific laws outside the CPC. Now, under this unbailable offence, what does it mean then?
It cannot has bail at all.
Yes, it's not bailable at all. There is no discretion given to the court to give bail to the person involved in the offences specifically stated. Now, those are the three things even involve bail. The first thing that you have to do when your client calls you saying that they're being charged in court tomorrow, that they want you to go and appear for them as their solicitors on record or as their lawyer on record. The first thing you should do is look at the crime. So what you need to do is ask your client under which particular section that he's being charged with. Once you know the particular section and the particular offense under which enactment that he's being charged, Dangerous Drugs Act, Road Transport Act, you need to know what's going on with his charge. Then you can decide. Compare it to the CPC plus look at the particular act that he is being charged with. You have to decide there and then whether it would be bailable or not available. You can advise him there and then. Okay. Any questions there?
So, sir, basically, bailable is bail as if there is a right to bail.
It's a matter of right.
And
Bailable
non-bail-
offense means it's I wouldn't talk more on the rights of the accused, but I would talk more on the discretion, on the power of the court, that they have no discretion not to give.
Oh,
I wouldn't talk on the right of the accused, but I would, when it comes to bailable offense, I would talk on the power of the court rather than, because bail is being given by the court. I mean, you can say that it's a matter of right, but I would not be if it were me, I wouldn't be talking about whether it's a right for the accused, but it would be more on the power of the court, whether they have or they can or cannot give bail under bailable offense, which, as you know, 387 says that they must give bail. See, you talk more on the court's power rather than on the right of the accused, because bail comes from the court, not from the accused. And you can see under non-bailable offense, it's generally stated the accused has no right to bail, but the court has the discretion to give it or not to give. So it talks about the power of the court. Same goes to unbailable offense. It talks about the power of the court, that the court cannot give bail at all. Understand?
yeah.
Okay. Now for bailable offenses and non-bailable offenses, it covers under Section 2 of the CPC. To know where under Section 2 of the CPC, you can check to see whether the offense is bailable or non-bailable. You can refer to the first schedule of the CPC. Those are listed there, and they have the schedule is very simple. It's very easy to understand. It's divided into columns, and it refers to the offense plus the sections that covers the offense as well. So it is very easy to use. That will be your one of the first thing that you must do once you get a call from your client to appear for them when they're being charged. Now you have to remember, bail comes into being with when your client is being charged, not when your client is being remanded. There's no bail involved when it comes to remand. Bail is involved when it comes to him being charged. Now, between remand and charge, which comes first then? Just to get an understanding of what's going on. See your understanding of this whole process of a criminal procedure then. Between remand and charge, which comes first? Can I get Najwa Rosli, please, to answer that?
I think Raymond come first.
Can't hear you, Najwa. Too soft.
Can you hear me? Raymond
too
come
soft.
first.
Sorry?
Sorry, Raymond come first. After that, charge.
If they decide to charge.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, coming back to section 2 and the first schedule of the CPC, where you see bailable and non-bailable, there's also unbailable. Now, unbailable, as I stated to you earlier, that it means usually it would cover specific laws outside the CPC. For example, Dangerous Drugs Act, which is a specific section, a specific offense under a specific act. As an authority that shows that, or an example, what is a unbailable offense under specific laws outside of the CPC, I would give to you a case of Loi Chin Hei, LOICHIN HEI against PP 1982 1 MLJ 31. Now in that 1982 case, this is a Dangerous Drugs Act case. Justice Wan Yahya at the High Court, as he was the High Court judge then, interpreted section 41B of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1962 to be an unbailable offense. This is in accordance with the CPC as well. And in Muhammad Jalil bin Abdullah against PP, where bail pending trial, it comes to section 387. Tadi kita dah cover the bailable offense, non-bailable offense, and unbailable offense. Now, for bailable offense, it comes under section 387, where the words used in that particular section is anybody? Shall be released on bail. Meaning there's no discretion there, court must give bail. Now again, as I told you just now, they're not talking about the rights of the accused here, they're talking about the power of the court. And here, the court has no power not to give bail. The court must give bail by virtue of the word shall. Now in Jalil bin Abdullah against PP, Muhammad Jalil bin Abdullah against PP, the term shall be released on bail under section 387 subsection 1 is mandatory. That's what the court held. There is no question of any discretion in granting bail. The provision of this section are imperative, meaning that there is no two ways about it. If it comes under section 387, then the court has no power not to give bail. Any questions there? For 387, the authority is Muhammad Jalil bin Abdullah. But despite saying that there are arguments saying that sometimes there were arguments then, despite the word shall being in existence in section 387, it was argued for the prosecution sometime then, those years, that there are some elements or some criteria which would give the court a power not to give bail under section 387, which it was argued then. But it was those argument was shot out. It was rejected, and to show where such an argument was argued and was rejected by the court, you look at the case of it's not a local case. It's called Bashiruddin, Bashiruddin, Bashiruddin against Regina or against the king. Regina would mean the king, which at that particular time, the person in charge or the person heading the monarchy would be a queen. Then that's why it's Regina. If the person heading the monarchy at that particular time was a king, then it will be Bashiruddin against Rex. Now, in Bashiruddin's case, a bad character was argued as a reason not to give bail to the accused, despite his offense was a bailable offense. What was stated in that case was that, however, as it was argued, a bad character of an accused that he may possess, he is undoubtedly entitled to be proceeded against according to law and not to be deprived of his liberty except in due course of law. Hence, where an accused is rightly entitled to be on bail, his bail cannot be cancelled except in due course of law. So if the law does not provide that a bail cannot be given to a person if he has bad character, then the court has no choice but to give bail. And this was argued by the prosecution then. Bad character, you cannot refuse bail. You cannot give bail despite section 387 says so, but the court disagreed with that, saying that a bad character is not a point or an element not to give bail, because as section 387 says, you must give bail, then you have to give bail. Then as it depends on the type of the offense, not rather than depending on the accused having a bad character or not. Any questions there?
What are the example of due course of law that
Due
causes
course
the
of law, what it means due course of law is that if there exists some other laws that states that, like section 387 does not have the word shall be released, maybe it has shall be released provided the accused has no bad character record. Now that is provided by the law, see? So if in that situation, now let's imagine section 387 has the word shall be released on bail, provided the accused has no bad character record. Now that is provided by the law. If that exists, then the court has the right not to give bail under section 387 if he has bad character record. But as it is, 387 is void of any terms and conditions. It is solid. It is clear that it has no provision. It has no exception. So the court has no exception at all under 387 except to give bail. What Bashiruddin was saying that you cannot give bail, you cannot giving bail, provided it must be in the course of law, which means there must be some other laws that provide the court from doing so. If there is no such law, then you have to give bail. That was what the case meant. Got it?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Despite saying so, there are limitations of right to be given bail. Despite saying that under 387 that the person must be given bail, there are limitations to that. The first limitation is that the person who is going to be given bail by court, he must be prepared to give bail, which means he must be able to give the requisite money and he must be able to look for a bailor. If he can't fulfill this requirement, then his right to be given bail under Section 387 cannot be exercised. And also the next limitation for right to be given bail is, of course, as we discussed just now, is a person under remand. Where a person under remand has no right whatsoever to be given bail. Now, what would be the logical explanation why a person under remand cannot be given bail? Forget about your CPC, forget about the process. Logically, why would a person under remand would not be given bail or couldn't be given bail?
Sir, let me try.
Yes, yes.
Abdul Had,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
In my opinion, the person under remand has not given a right to for bail because they have to help. Mereka ini diperlukan untuk membantu siasatan. Oleh itu mereka tidak boleh dilepaskan untuk ikat jamin. Thank you.
that could be a reason as well. But you have to look at from the point of bail, not from the point of investigation, since we're discussing on bail. Why, logically, from the bail point of view, as we just discussed earlier, that a person under remand couldn't be given bail? You're right there from the point of the investigation. Yeah, I agree with you there. But from the point of bail, since we're talking about bail. Yes, Had.
Okay. As for bail, the accused person will be brought to the court. However, for remand, there is no necessary to be brought to court yet.
Well, they will be brought to court if they need the person to remand the person more than 24 hours. They still need to bring the person to court for an extension of remand. But then, even if the police bring the accused to court for an application to extend the remand, which is after 24 hours, there is no discussion of bail there yet. The reason being, from the bail point of view, why you cannot ask for bail or give bail yet is because you do not know under which particular section or offense he has committed. See, because like you said, it's under investigation. See, he can be investigated under section 323, causing hurt. But as he being investigated, they could find him guilty, or they could find him he has committed section 39B. See? They could have arrested him for section 323, see? Remand him for that. But as the investigation for 323 going on, they might go and take his car, and they found in his car that there are 40 kilos of ganja. So it might go to Section 30, not only for Section 323, but it can also be charged under Section 39B. So as far as remand is concerned, they are not sure of which particular section they are going to charge the accused yet, or the arrested person yet, the suspect. At this time, they call suspect. At the remand stage, the person is called a suspect. So that is the reason why you can't decide, or you can't give bail yet. Got it? It was still at an investigation stage. You don't know which particular section that is going to be charged with. Got it? Logically, that is the reason why you can't decide to give bail, or you can't give bail yet when a person under remand. So kalau a person under remand, if you can't give bail, then can you let the person go then? Can the police let the person go while he's still under remand without having to charge him and without having him to pay bail? Can the police do that? Let a person go who is under investigation?
Based on my understanding,
Who's this,
police cannot,
please? Siapa ni?
Imran.
Okay, Imran.
Okay.
Yes.
Based on my understanding, police cannot let the person at large, because that person is still under remand, and remand is something related, is focusing on the investigation. So it is the duty of the police not to let the suspect let loose, because he may and may not destroy the evidence for the case.
Yes, they can do that. Generally, that's what the practice is. But by practice, also a person under investigation can still be released out without having bail being given by the court. Usually orang cakap apa? People will call it the police bail. Atau kalau kita, if the layman would call it jamin mulut. And they will be released from the balai, not from the court. See? As far as court bail is concerned, you have to charge him, and then you have to apply for bail. But as far as police is concerned, under remand, they can still let the person go, even though that person is still under investigation. If the police feels that, usually in a situation where the police feel that he is not the culprit, even though he is still under investigation, there could be 90% of him being the culprit, while another 10% saying that he may be, 90% says he may not be the culprit. Or the police is confident that there is nothing for them to go on to investigate, but they do not want to let go of the accused yet, or of the suspect yet totally. So what they will do is that, not give bail as in the bail we're talking about, but they giving the person a police bail, which is jamin mulut. Sometimes dia just bayar RM400, RM500 dekat balai. On condition that whenever the police call them back to the balai, they have to come back to balai. Now that's how a person under remand can be released without having to go to court asking for bail. Got it?
So kiranya person yang dapat police bail ni adalah bukan suspect offence lah. Dia mostly untuk orang yang
They are still considered as a suspect.
tapi sedikit lah.
But the possibility or the probability yang court think that he might run away, that he is the actual suspect, plus on the seriousness of the offense, the court would take that all into consideration, thinking that, look, why should we keep him in the lockup? Might as well let him go whenever we need him. We just give him a call, then he'll come. There is no risk of him not coming. There is no risk of him running away. Usually the court will look at the seriousness of the offense. It's not entirely meaning that that guy is let go. There is still, because he's still bound by the police punya bail. But the court feels that he's not a flight risk, that he will still, the court will, the judge will, the police will look at whether how cooperative he has been during the investigation. Okay, coming back to our, sorry?
So I have a question. So basically, when we say that the police...
Who's on the line, please?
My name is Wafi, sir.
Yes, Wafi.
Okay, so basically when you said that police may bail the offender, potential offender, right? Based on the reason that he believe that, or they believe that he's not the culprit, right? You say. So dia kena datangkan apa orang kata macam even slightest evidence ke untuk yang menyatakan bahawa orang ni bukan culprit untuk dia bail orang tu atas polis bail ke, atau just cukup sekadar
that would be subjective. It depends on the police. It depends on the police. Sometimes there are serious offences where they given police bail. See, there could be sometimes case apa tu causing grievous hurt 3 to 5. Sometimes the court feels that, or the police feel that, oh, this guy is somebody of high stature in society. So kalau dia orang nak panggil untuk investigate, nak ambil statement lagi, this guy would come because of thinking of his stature. Dia tak nak keluar, nanti keluar warrant untuk cari dia datang mahkamah, datang balai ke kalau dia tak datang. So if the court thinks, if the police think that, look, we can release him on police bail, provided that he will come, and we have confidence that he will come because of his stature in the society, that he will still give cooperation, then the police will still give that. See, no need to go and charge him first to let him have a court punya bail. See? But at the end of the day, after releasing the person, under police bail, and after doing a full investigation, and they feel that, look, we have enough evidence to charge him in court, they can either pick him up, hold him overnight, and bring him to court tomorrow to be charged, or they can also give a call to that guy, look, we are charging you, please make yourself available tomorrow at this court at this time. See? So that guy can come tomorrow, sendiri to mahkamah, police will take him, meet him in mahkamah and charge him in kat mahkamah, instead of taking him from his home one day early. So they can do that. Now, bila charge dekat mahkamah, then he would have to ask for the court's bail pula, depending on the offence that we have charged, they're charging him under. Got it?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for the explanation.
Okay, good. Now, under section, we are still talking on the limitation of section 387. If you look at section 117 of the CPC, that is also another limitation, which a second limitation to section 387 subsection 1. Can I have Muhammad Fauzan read section 117, please?
Yes, sir, sure. Section 117. Okay. Section 117, subsection 1. Whenever any person is arrested or detained in custody, and it appears that the investigation cannot be completed within the period of 24 hours fixed by section 28, and there are grounds for believing that the accusation or information is well founded by the police officer making the investigation, shall immediately transmit to a magistrate a copy of the entries in the diary hereinafter prescribed relating to the case, and shall at the same time produce the accused before the magistrate. Subsection 1A, the public prosecutor may appear in any application made under this section. Shall I read all the section?
It's okay. So what section 117 mean situation is the one that I told you just now. It's the extension for bail. Extension for remand, because as you know, the police can arrest a person, hold a person for 24 hours. If they intend to hold a person more than 24 hours under section 117, they have to make an application to extend the remand. So under this application to extend the remand, right of bail does not exist. That is a second limitation to section 3871. Under a situation where there is an application to remand, then the right to bail under section 3871 does not exist. You can look at the case of Maja Anak Kus against PP, M-A-J-A. I do not have the citation with me at the moment. It's M-A-J-A, Anak, A-N-A-K, Kus, K-U-S, against PP. Now, another limitation for giving bail is that when there has been a breach of a term of bail bond. This is in a situation if in relation to section, we're still under relation to section 381. As you know, 381 does not give the discretion to the court not to give bail. The court has to give bail. Now, the limitation under section 381 here is that the one that would give the court the power not to give bail is in another situation, is in a situation where there is a breach, there has been a breach of the bail that was given earlier. So let's say A was charged in court, A was given bail on condition that, of course, the first condition would be that he has to appear in court whenever the court requires him to do so. But in this situation, comes the next mention, comes the third mention, he did not appear in court. So there is a clear revocation, a clear breach of the condition of the bail that was given earlier. Now, in this situation, the court then has the right to cancel the bail that was given originally and lock him up. Then, on grounds that he was given bail, he has breached the bail, the term of the bail that he was originally given. So based on this, the court can now not give him bail. Understand?
Yes.
Questions? Now, under section 387, the court cannot impose any additional condition of the bail. See? The only condition that the court must impose when giving bail is stating the amount plus sureties. That's all. For example, saya bagi kamu jamin dengan wang jaminan RM1,000 dengan satu penjamin, or dua penjamin, or tiga penjamin. That would be the only conditions that the court are allowed to give when they're giving bail. Under section 387, the bailable offences. Now, coming to section 388, which is the second kind of offense under bail, is called non-bailable offences. Now, as you know, as was read by one of your colleagues just now, section 388 gives the discretion to the court to grant bail depending on the offences. See? And also depending on the circumstances and facts of the case. Now, for non-bailable offences and bailable offences, as I told you just now, you can refer to first schedule. Now, for non-bailable offences, the discretion of the court to be exercised by the court would depend on the circumstances and facts of each case. Now, under section 388, as was read by Farhana, I think just now, laid down the three types of offences. The first offences would be a punishment with life imprisonment or death penalty, and has no reasonable ground to believe that the accused is guilty. The court has no reasonable ground to believe that the accused is guilty, but there are sufficient ground for further inquiry. The court may grant bail in this particular situation for non-bailable offences. See, if you can look at Datuk Mat Shah, DATO Mat Shah, MATSHAH, against Pendakwa Raya 1991 to MLJ 125. Was this case touched by your lecturer previously, this week or last week, during bail lecture? Anyone? Was this case discussed?
I think not yet. Not yet.
Was
sir.
not discussed. Okay, take down the citation 1991 to MLJ 125. Now, this case talks about the first type of offences, which covers life imprisonment. That offence attracts the punishment of life imprisonment or death penalty. And in that situation, the court has no reasonable ground to believe that he is guilty, but there are sufficient ground to give for further inquiry. Now, in this situation, the court can decide to give bail despite it attracts life imprisonment or death penalty. Now, in Datuk Mat Shah's case, it was decided by the Supreme Court that the court will lean in favor of granting bail unless there are strong grounds that bail should be refused. The court further held that the High Court, you have to remember, this is an offense that attracts death penalty and life imprisonment. So these kind of offenses will be tried at the High Court. So the Supreme Court further held that the High Court has unfettered discretion to grant bail when the offense is punishable with death or life imprisonment. Now, in relation to that, there are factors to be considered before the court grants bail under the non-bailable offences. In PP against Wee Swee Siang, 1948, MLJ 114. Did you guys go through this case with the lecturer this week?
Yes, sir.
This case was discussed then.
Yeah,
Was
explain.
it?
Yes.
It was explained. What are the 9 factors then, Hal?
9 factors that the High Court observe to consider granting bail are reasonable grounds to believe the accused is guilty of the offence. Second, the nature of the offence. The third, severity of punishment that might follow. Fourth, the danger of the accused absconding if he granted bail. And fifth, accused character, means and standing. Six, danger of the offence being continued or repeated. if the bail granted. 7th, danger of witness being tampered with the accused. 8th, opportunity of the accused to prepare for his defense. And the last one, the period of detention or custody between date of charge and the date of trial.
Okay,
9.
let's go. Let's go to the factors one by one. Then, thank you, Hat. Now, in Sui Xiang, the first one was the court will have to look at whether there was or was not reasonable ground for believing the accused guilty of the offense that was discussed just now. And then the second one, the court will look at the nature and gravity of the offense charged, meaning the court will look at the seriousness of the offense, whether it's serious or not serious. There is one of the factors being considered, shall be considered by the court. Third one would be the court would have to look at the severity and the degree of punishment that might follow with regard to the offense. That they will not only look at the nature, but also they will look at the severity as well. A murder case, a person being shot once compared to a murder being hacked 52 times. The severity is different, despite it having causing a person death, but one shot compared to 52 hackings are different type of severity there. The court will look at that as well. And then, of course, the main thing when it comes to bail, usually in practice that involved lawyers, defense lawyers, this would be the usual thing, the usual argument, the usual argument given by the DPP, not asking the court not to give bail. The usual point also being asked by the defense lawyer for the court to give bail is that the person or the accused has no flight risk. The danger of the accused absconding is there or is not there, depending on which side you are. The accused would say that the person is flight risk. The defense would say that the person is not a flight risk. If the accused decides or apply to court not to give bail based on the risk that the accused might be absconding, then usually they would come up with the history of the accused in absconding bail before, which would mean that the accused could be a repeat offender, which would mean that the accused would have been brought to court quite a few times and given bail, and quite a few times as well, he has not appeared in court when bail was given to him. See? Or there are other outstanding charge against him that has not been closed yet or has not been put on trial yet because they couldn't find him before. So having all this record would give the DPP grounds to apply strongly for the court not to give bail. While you, on the other hand, as defense lawyer, if it's the first time that your client is being charged with in court, then also that if your client is of a person of high stature in society, you can argue that in your favor in order to say or to show to the court that your client is not a flight risk. Look at his character, look at his stature. Therefore, the court should give him bail based on that point, that the danger of the accused absconding is there or is not there. Now, the fifth point discussed by Wee Swee Xiang is also on the character, means, and standing. Like I told you just now, the standing of the person is looked at as well, the demeanor of the person, the character of the person. 6 is that the danger of the offense being continued or repeated. This would apply to situation where your client is a repeat offender. See, there has been occasions before that he has committed the same crime, and the court, based on that, feels that if he is let go while pending his case to be called for trial, he might commit the same offense again. If the court feels that, the court might refuse bail then, maybe in a situation where your client is a drug addict. See, where he is being charged for under section 51A of the DDA, and then he has 3 previous record of the same charge. So the court will feel, look, if I let him go before we call him for trial for this particular charge, then he might be committing another offense under the same charge. So the court might decide not to give him bail on that. The 7th situation on whether they will give him or not give him bail is the court will look at on the possibility that if the court decides to let him go on bail, then he might go and tamper with the witnesses. This usually happens in rape cases, especially in rape where it involves a father raping a daughter, a stepfather raping a stepdaughter, a neighbor raping the daughter of another neighbor, maybe an employer causing an offense against an employee. These are the things that the court will look at whether the relationship or the proximity of the victim and also the alleged accused is close or not. If it is deemed close and that there are possibilities that the accused being able to meet the victim every day, that they know the victim by way of relation. If because of this, the court feels that there are possibilities that the witnesses, especially the victim, will be tampered with by the accused if he's being let out on bail, then the court will not give bail as well. On the 8th point, the opportunity to the accused to prepare for the defense. This point would be on situation where the court feels that if the court let him out on bail, then he can go and tamper with some evidence. With him being out, he would have the opportunity to tamper with evidence which would enable him to prepare a better defense if the court goes for trial later. This is also another point where the court will look at whether to give bail or not to bail. If such an opportunity exists, then the court will refuse bail as well. And the court would also look at the 9th or the last part under vis young. The court would look at the period of the detention of the accused and the probability of further period of delay. For example, let's say a person has brought to court before a magistrate and he has been detained for a long time, that the court feels that if giving him bail may also not giving bail to him may curtail him of such freedom because of the delay to the case, which is not due to his fault. The court would feel that it would be unfair to him, then the court would still give him bail on that point. See, in order to avoid an accused being under remand for a long time while the case was still not being heard yet. So in order to be fair to him, the court can decide to give him bail on that point as well. Because you have to remember, this is on the view that if a person is already being held in jail for not giving bail, and then the court foresee that his case might take a long time to come before the court for trial, then it would not be fair to him. Let's say when it comes for trial later on, that at the end of the day, he is found not guilty, then it would not have been fair. And who will compensate him for the long time that he has spent in jail while waiting for the case to be called? Sedangkan there is put on trial in such a long time after he was arrested. If the court feels like that, then the court can release him on bail. Any questions on that, on Ms. Wisiang?
Sir,
Yes.
You have said about the requirements on the nature and the gravity of the case and also the severity, right? What
I
are the
did not
diff-
say that. The court says that. We
oh,
Swiss Young say that.
oh, so but actually, what are the differences of those two requirements
Of what?
of the severity of the case and the gravity of the case?
The severity of the severity, as I explained just now, the court would look at as well, let's say, number 3, point number 3, the severity and degree of punishment that might follow.
All punishment, right?
It was punishment.
Oh, I thought it was a case. All right.
Number 2 was the nature gravity of the offense. Number 3 was the degree and severity of the punishment. See, offense, nature gravity of the offense is at the point number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Point number 3 is the severity and degree of punishment that might follow. Now, we Swiss Young, as a practitioner, usually we use that to argue in court, mostly to use the point where the what would I say, as an authority to show, usually we use it as a authority to show our client is not a flight risk. Usually that would be the case lah, unless of course you have clients of VIP clients, then you can use character, means, and his standing in society as part of your argument to ask the court to give bail on him. But more often than not, when it comes to normal everyday people, if you go to court for magistrate's court or for sessions court, usually you would use this case in order to argue that he's not a flight risk, unless of course he has history of running away, of jumping bail, then you can't use that anymore. See, you have to remember, when it comes to bail, what is the point of bail? What is the point of bail? The
As a
point of
security.
bail, yeah, security for what? You're right there, you're halfway there. But security for what? Despite what we have discussed from point number 1 to point number
Security
9,
of attendance.
yes, that's all there is to it. You see, that's all there is to it. The point of bail is to release him, and then whatever money that's been paid as his bail is to secure his appearance in court. That's all. That is the point of bail. To secure his appearance in court. Now, if you can convince the judge that he will appear in court, then by right the court should give him bail. See, you can also use Swiss Young as an authority to ask the court to lower the bail amount as was offered by the DPP. If you go to court on the day that your client is being charged, the DPP, more often than not, we would have already decided how much bail he's willing to offer. See? What you should do when you go to court, the first thing that you should do, go say hi to the DPP, introduce yourself to the DPP, inform your DPP which client you're appearing for, and then ask the DPP. Nothing harm in doing that. Ask the DPP, okay, since he's being charged today, how much bail that are you offering? At least before the case is called, you would already have in mind how much they are offering the bail. See? Understand? Got it?
Yes.
Then you can inform your client, okay, the DPP is asking for a 5,000 bail. Sometimes the DPP said, we are not offering anything, we're leaving it to court, which is good. But more often than not, the DPP would already have some sort of amount that they're offering for bail. If they offer for bail 5,000 ringgit or 10,000 ringgit, what you should do is ask half of it. Ask half of it. They say it's 10,000, you ask for 5,000, and argue, use Swiss Young and say that, look, judge, he has no previous record of absconding from bail. This is his first offense. So as far as Swiss Young is concerned, the whole purpose of bail is to secure attendance. So the purpose of bail is not to punish Now, if an amount is too high, especially if you compare that to the fine, if someone is found guilty under that particular offense, then it will be considering as punishing the accused already. Let's say the fine in that particular offense is only 5,000 ringgit, but they are asking for a bill of 20,000 ringgit. That is ridiculous. It's too far from the actual fine of that particular offense if he's found guilty. So you can use that as a point of argument as well. The whole point of bail is, number one, to secure appearance. Number two is not to punish the accused, because as far as he is concerned, at that particular time when he's charged, he's still considered as an innocent party. He's only considered guilty when he first convicted by the court. So the amount of 20,000 ringgit should not be considered by the judge at all, because that would be amounting to or tantamount to a punishment already to a person who is deemed by law to be innocent until proven guilty. So you can argue on that point by using vis vis young. Understand?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Sir,
Yes, Suza.
kalau murder, dia ada range tak berapa bail yang dia boleh kasih? So, murder kan sepatutnya tak boleh diberi bail kan? So kalau macam nak ikat jamin on certain condition, contohnya macam yang previously we know that if the offender is a mother and she has a child yang below 5 years old, dia boleh diikat jamin. Yang itu ada range tak berapa bail yang dikenakan macam tu?
Tak ada, no specific range. It depends on the court.
I see. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sometimes they don't give the bail amount juga. Sometimes they can also not collect money. It depends on the court. But usually they would collect some money lah. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, Wee Swee Siang, it was a Supreme Court decision which I always use when I go and argue for bail. That case was expanded or discussed further by Augustine Paul in the first Anwar Ibrahim case, PP against Anwar Ibrahim, 1998, CLJ JT bracket 12. Now, in that case, Augustine, was this case discussed by your lecturer? Anyone? Was this case discussed? Ada tak? It's a landmark case. Anwar Ibrahim, 1998.
Yes.
Yes, it has been discussed.
Okay. Can I call upon? Where are the guys? I see a lot of ladies, but no. Yes. Muhammad Afi Amirul.
Yes, sir.
What was discussed by Augustine Paul in Anwar Ibrahim's case, in the 1998 case, with regard to bail?
In this case,
His Lordship discussed Wee Swee Siang.
In this case.
So what was discussed with regard to bail by Augustine Paul and in relation to Wee Swee Siang?
The court take into consideration about the social status of the accused and the health of the accused, as well as the danger of the accused if he is absconded after he was granted the bail. So basically, as mentioned earlier, there are 9 factors laid down under the case of Wee Swee Siang, and then it was further highlighted by Augustine Paul Judge, where social status of the accused, the health of the accused, as well as the danger of the accused if he run away or he does not appear during the trial.
Okay, so what was decided by the judge then? Was bail granted or was bail not granted to Anwar Ibrahim?
the learned judge was not in favor, or was not the bill was not granted by the court because
Okay. Because
wait, sir.
sorry.
Um, Sorry, sir. I'm not so sure about the.
Okay. Now, in expanding or in elaborating with Swiss Young, he applied with Swiss Young, but his lordship went further by looking at the facts of the case. Now, the reason why Justice Augustine Paul refused to give bail, this is an additional point that was looked at by his lordship. In addition to the points, the 9 points laid out in Swiss Young, the additional point in Anwar Ibrahim's first case, the judge, he looked at this point in not to give bail to Anwar Ibrahim was that, number one, because the accused was an ISA detainee. Anwar Ibrahim used to be an ISA detainee. See, he looked at the status of Anwar Ibrahim, who was the DPM at that time, and also a high-profile politician as well. He looked at the accused, the health of the accused. He was healthy then, and he looked at the danger of the accused absconding. His lordship feels that he took into consideration the severity of the offense as well, and he also thought that he might abscond if given bail. Plus, because you have to look at the punishment. If he was found guilty, the punishment was severe. His lordship looked at that as well, decided that he could be a flight risk. And also the fifth point that Augustine Paul looked as well was on the danger of witnesses being tampered with. Now this point number 4, danger of accused absconding, and also danger of witnesses being tampered with if Anwar Ibrahim is released on bail, is also related with the social status of the accused, who was a high profile politician at that particular time. Now, having taking this all into consideration, plus the 9 points laid out by Swiss Young, that was the reason why the late Augustine Paul refused bail to Anwar Ibrahim. See, so it's 9 with Swiss Young plus 5 in that particular case. See, so now instead of having 9, you have an additional point. 9 plus 5. Got it? So there are 14 points now for the court to look at, for you or the DPP for all it matters, to ask the court to look at whether they want to give bail or they should not give bail. Depends on which side you're arguing for. Got it?
Sir, I have a question.
Who's this? Wafi?
Wafi, yes.
Yes.
So basically, when we say that the court added these 5 additional points, does the court measure this factor by balance of probability or what?
It depends on there is no balance of probability. There is not the standard of, there is no standard of proof there. See, it's just a matter of facts.
So the answer to each factor is whether yes or no ataupun dia subjective.
Subjective, depending on the facts. It could be yes, it could be no, depending on the facts. The high stature of a person in society, it could be in his favor, it may not be in his favor. In Anwar Ibrahim's situation, the judge decided that it is not in his favor because he can use his influence to maybe, I'm just speculating here, but maybe he can order someone to go and tamper with the witnesses involved. See? But in other situation, his high standing in the society could be in his favor in a way that he may not abscond.
So
because
tengok
of his
capacity
stature.
dia lah kan sir?
Yes, tengok capacity plus you have to look at the surrounding circumstances. It could work on your favor, it could work on the DPP's favor. See, those points are not points that can work only for one side. It can both be in favor of either side, depending on the facts of the case and depending how well you argue for your client. Like in Anwar Ibrahim, the court decided you are too high profile, you got too much influence over other people, which if I let you go, you might ask your underlings to go and influence the witnesses. The court might think that as well. But in other situations, maybe you being a dato, being a person of high stature, a person who's well known for your charity, and you're a person who has no influence over other people, but because of your high stature being a charitable person, the court might be in your favor and let you go on bail. So just because you have a high stature, this for an example, it can be in your favor, it cannot be in your favor, depending on the facts surrounding the case. Got it? So it is subjective. There is no balance of probability. No, there is no such thing. The court look at, of course, probability is there, but the balance of probabilities is not the burden, the standard of proof is not used there. It's just a simple probability, depending on the facts of the case.
Oh, I see. Bukan macam contohnya
Got it?
ketiga health of the accused, dia sihat atau tidak, kalau tidak dapat, kalau dia macam ni, bukan contoh, dia akan tengok surrounding.
Depends lah. Macam ni kalau dia tak sihat, kalau dia tak sihat, if he's not well, but the court feels that he can still get the same treatment of medical treatment in jail, then the court may not let him go. But if the court sees that he's not well and what can be provided by the prison is not enough for his health condition, the court might let him go on bail. Because they don't want him to die in prison and their death to be on their hands. See? So it depends. It can go either way, but those are the points that will be looked at by the courts. Got it? Understand?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the brief explanation.
Okay, no worries. Now we come to amount of bond. Somebody asked me whether there is a rate. Siapa yang tanya tadi whether there is a rate or a range of bail amount that being laid out. Siapa tanya tadi?
Saya.
So Filzah. Okay, now we coming to that topic, amount of bond. Now, like I informed you just now when we discussed with Young. Yes, Ain. Questions? Tak ada. Now, coming to amount of bond, as I mentioned just now when we were discussing with Swiss Young, when it comes to amount of bond, it should be sufficient with due regard to the circumstances of the case in order to secure attendance of the accused, but it shall not be excessive. This was in Datuk Mat Shah against PP 1991 to MLJ 125. Now, besides Swiss Young, we also sometimes use Datuk Mat Shah, like I said just now, in situation yang mana in an offence where if a person is found guilty of that offence, the fine is only 5,000 ringgit. But here come the DPP, he or she is offering 20,000 ringgit bail, which is not logical at all. See, instead of trying to have a reasonable and sufficient bail to make sure that the accused appear in court later on, that particular amount, it should be considered as excessive, and it should be considered as already punishing the accused. When he is at that particular point, he's still an innocent person. Sebab kalau dia found guilty later on pun, the fine is only 5,000 ringgit. But you're asking for a bill of 20,000 ringgit. Where is he supposed to go and find 20,000 ringgit? Even if he's found guilty later on, he's supposed only to pay 5,000 ringgit. So you can argue that using Datuk Mat Shah and also Swiss Young, that look, this particular amount is too excessive. It should be deemed as already punishment to the accused. when in the whole point of bail is to secure his attendance. See? So when you apply to court for bail, you can ask the court a specific amount. You can mention to court, let's say if the DPP offer 10,000 ringgit, you can ask the court in your argument later on and saying that, look, it would be best and sufficient to secure the attendance of the accused, taking into consideration the seriousness of the offense, taking into consideration the severity of the punishment, and also his background as kerja apa-apa, then maybe you should ask for 5,000 ringgit. Having in mind, when you do that in practice, the court will not give 10,000 ringgit as per asked by the DPP. Neither would the court give 5,000 ringgit as per asked by you. What usually happens is that they would give slightly lower than what the DPP asked and slightly higher than what you asked. So you could advise your client, if you already know from the DPP, when you introduce yourself to the DPP in the morning, trying to know how much they are offering the bail, then you could already go to your client and advise your client or the family, after having a talk with the DPP, tell the client, maybe you're going to ask for 5,000 ringgit. So please bear in mind, they're giving 10, they're asking for 10, I'm asking for 5. So most probably the court will give maybe 8 or 7. So at least at that particular time, before the case is going to be called before the magistrate, they would already have in their mind berapa yang they kena bayar. But do not promise them that particular amount, because it is still not up to you. The judge might still give what the DPP asked for. But at least dia orang dah dapat gauge berapa yang dia orang boleh bayar. Got it?
Sir,
Yes.
untuk apa tu yang polis punya bail tu, dia harga dia amount yang standard ke sama juga proses dia?
Biasa 500 ringgit lah, or sometimes kalau very very small offense dia bagi jamin mulut aja, tak ada bayar pun. See? Got it? Faham? Now, another point on amount of bond. Tadi we discuss on the argue on the sufficient amount of bail in relation to the circumstances of the case, in relation to secure the attendance of the accused. That is under Datuk Mat Shah. Now, another argument that you should argue in order for the court to give a lower bail amount is that the amount should not be punitive in nature. Macam kita argue tadi dalam Datuk Mat Shah. Or in this case, there's a 1987 case for the amount should not be punitive in nature. Zulkifli bin Haji Hassan, 1987 to MLJ 527. See? You can argue as well, macam saya argue tadi, that fine is 5,000 ringgit if found guilty. They're asking for 20,000 ringgit bail. It's already punitive in nature. By right, you dah punish pun the accused, sedangkan dia masih tak tahu lagi guilty ke tak. By asking to go and find money to let himself out for 20,000 ringgit. When if he found guilty, he has only have to pay 5,000 ringgit. So the amount of the bail bond of the bail, if it is too high, you compare it with the fine involved. If it's too high, you can argue in court that it's already punishment in nature. It should be lowered. It's already punitive in nature, so it should be lowered. The court should not give what was asked by the DPP. Use Zulkifli Hassan. And you can also argue, the next point is that in order to lower the amount of the bail, you can also ask the court, look, we ask you to lower the amount of the bail, and the court is at liberty to impose additional conditions, such as surrender of passport or report to police regularly. See? You can also do that. This is also in Datuk Mat Shah against PP.
Sir, kiranya
Yes.
kalau amount of bond tu tak bermaksud punishment, lepas kita bayar bail tu, dia sebagai security of attendance. Kalau attend, bila perlu tu kita akan dapat refund balik ke duit bail kita tu macam mana? Macam
When the case dah habis.
oh,
When the case is
macam
over,
pasport dengan
the same goes to passport, whatever. When the case is over, whether you found guilty ke tak. Whether when the case is over, which means prosecution's case that's over, let's say the court decide to call defense. After call defense, you go and the court decide you're not guilty. So once you decided not guilty, the bailer boleh buat keluarkan duit dia. Kalau case tu takes 2 years to complete, then 2 years lah duit tu ada kat dalam tu. It will take 2 years juga for the passport to be held by the court.
Kalau guilty, sir, the money will be...
The guilty can, if he's guilty, generally what happen is the bailer can take the money out because the case is already completed. But if he is guilty and one of the punishment of the guilt of his conviction is that the police cakap, okay, I find him guilty, I convict him on the offense, and the punishment is he has to pay fine of 3,000 ringgit. So what he can do in practice, what they would do is that, and no jail. Let's say the court decide, okay, I found him guilty, and I punish you with only fine, no jail. So what he can do is that, let's say he's fined for 3,000 ringgit. What they can do is ask the bailer to turun to the court punya counter, and then inform the counter. Let's say his bail was 5,000 ringgit. Inform the counter. Look, the counter would already have the file buat turun dah kat dia orang. They would have looked at the decision of the court, and then let's say look, he was fined 2,000 ringgit. So duit jamin yang saya dah bayar 5,000 ringgit before this, boleh kontra tak ke 2,000 ringgit to consider as fine? Give me the balance back of 3,000 ringgit. That's what they all usually do.
Sir, ada options ke bentuk security yang court minta macam duit ke, pasport ke dia macam ikut capability orang tu?
Ikut apa capability?
Macam ada options ke untuk orang yang nak bail ni, nak bayar ke, nak pilih untuk restrain passport ke dia macam court akan bagi ikut capability pula, ikut mana yang sesuai dengan orang tu. Macam in what cases yang court akan impose condition on passport apa semua tu.
Court akan tengok condition passport. Kalau orang tu let's say a high flyer yang selalu pergi overseas, see? If he selalu pergi overseas, or he's a businessman yang travel regularly, which the court says things that if I give him bail and he keeps on going overseas, he has the freedom of going overseas, he might not come to court, see? So the court might decide that, look, I need him to surrender his passport. That it is not hard and fast rule. It depends on the facts of the case. Faham?
Okay, faham.
Now, what you guys miss out is that this is non-bailable offense. Non-bailable offense under Section 388. What did Section 387 for bailable offense say as far as imposing conditions? Kita dah discuss dari 387, bailable offense.
Number of amount and sureties.
Yes. Dalam bailable offense, as far as 387 is concerned, the court cannot impose other conditions beside stating the amount plus how many sureties. That's it. But now we are discussing non-bailable offense under 388. Under this offense, specific offenses, non-bailable offense ni, unlike 387 bailable offense, the court can impose additional conditions. Surrender passport, report to police regularly, the court can impose that under non-bailable offense. But under bailable offense, only dua tu saja. State the amount, state how many sureties, and that's it. Faham? It might come up in your question in your exam. I don't know. I tak tahu. Could be because those are the difference.
Sir,
Yes. Who's on the line, please?
Arham.
Yes, Arham.
Okay, if we acting as a DPP, is there any circumstances to take into account or guideline to suggest to the court the amount of the bail, except
With it,
the exceeding the maximum fine in the offence lah? Ada
Boleh, it can exceed there is no rule that it cannot exceed the fine. There is no rule that states that the bail being offered by the DPP cannot exceed the fine. There is no rule stating so. It can exceed the fine. See, you have to look at the severity of the thing, the circumstances of the case, and all that. There is no rule that states that if the fine is 5,000 ringgit, you only have to offer bail of 5,000 below. Tak ada. But if it's too vast a difference between the fine and also the bail being offered, then the defense lawyer can argue that the vast difference is already punitive in nature to the accused. But if you asking whether there is an outline or there is a guideline for the DPP to look at the fine and then think of whether the bail should be below the fine, no, there is no such thing. It depends on the DPP. Okay. Usually the DPP will already have the IP on this, and they would have already the record of the accused. They would know whether the accused is a repeat offender and not. Maybe based on that, then there would be the reason why they would ask for a higher bail. See,
okay.
but if you ask whether there exists a standard rule, tak ada. Tak ada.
Oh, okay.
As far as I know, tak ada. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Now, coming back to our continuation of type of non-bailable offense study, to continue from there. Another non-bailable offenses is that an offense which is punished with life imprisonment or death penalty and has reasonable ground to believe that he is guilty. Now, in this kind of situation, shall not be released means there is no discretion. However, it does not mean that the offense is unbailable. It is quite confusing. So let's take a look at the decision by Justice Wilkinson. One of you have already discussed tadi, kalau in a situation where life imprisonment or death penalty usually tak ada bail, but I think Farhana read there are some a few grounds where bail can be given, which would make that particular offense with punishment of life imprisonment or death penalty not an unbailable, but a non-bailable offense. Justice Wilkinson has discussed this, and where he said that, let me read his decision. He said that I was of the opinion that in cases punishable with death and in cases punishable penal servitude for life means life imprisonment. The High Court ought not to grant bail. Ought not to grant bail except for exceptional and very special reason. So he laid down the general rule dalam kes yang melibatkan life imprisonment and death penalty. The general rule would be no bail. But if circumstances arise, exceptional circumstances arise, the court can give bail. Number 3, where bail can be given in non-bailable offences is in a situation where the court believes that he is guilty. The court has grounds to believe that that particular person is guilty, but he falls under the proviso, the exception where bail can be given. Now, usually the grounds where the court would believe that a person is guilty or not could be from a person being a repeat offender of the same offense. But the court feels that despite having that feeling that he's guilty, the court have not decided yet, but having grounds to believe that he is guilty, the court finds that they falls under the provision read by Farhana tadi, which is a woman, number 2, 16 years old, and number 3, a 6 person. If they fall under this provision, under this exception, in applying what Justice Wilkinson just said just now, then that particular person can be given bail. There's a celebrated case here, which the proviso of women 16 years old, sick person was used by the court to give bail. There was a celebrated case here. You should know this case. Nur Azmida.
Yes, sir.
Nur Azmida.
Yes.
What's the celebrated case
Uh,
for the proviso of women or 16 years old or sick person under section 388 that allows the court to give bail?
the case of Balwat Singh,
Yes. What's the facts then? Thank you.
the bill was granted in sum of 500,000 with 2 sureties and security.
No, the facts first. The facts first. That's the decision. The facts.
Yes, sir. If I may try.
Let's give a chance to Asmida first.
Okay, sir.
Yes, Asmida. Facts of Balwan Singh. What was he charged with? What was Balwan Singh charged with in the first place?
It was a murder charge
Okay.
brought upon the accused. However, he applied for a bail since he was 18 years old and ill.
18 or 80?
18.
Okay. What was held by Augustine Paul in that case?
In this case, the bail was granted in sum of 500,000 with 2 sureties, with security to be furnished and several conditions, which include the surrender of his firearm, its license, and his passport.
Okay. But that was the decision by the court. But the grounds that the court came to that decision. What was the ground that Augustine Paul made before he came to that decision?
because he committed the act when he was 80 years old and ill and requires regular monitoring.
Okay. Okay. Siapa tadi yang volunteer tadi? A gentleman volunteered tadi.
Wafi.
Yes, Wafi.
Saya, ya.
You volunteered tadi kan?
So
Okay.
in this case of the Balwan Singh, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as I recall, this case is in regards to the fan which Datuk Balwan Singh committed was he shot some person as the person was trying to attack or assaulted him.
Okay.
He gave warning by firing a warning shot for the person that were trying to assault him, and the person proceeded furthermore even after the shot was fired by him, and hence
Okay.
he fired at that such person lah.
Okay. That would be the defense that he might use in his case. But as far as bail is concerned, Asmida has already given us the facts, which is he was 80 years old and he required medical treatment. And Asmida has also given us the finding or the decision of the court as far as bail is concerned. But what was the ground that was found by Augustine Paul in coming to that decision to give bail?
Sir,
Balwan.
is
Yes.
it the self-defense as a factor to be considered in granting bail?
No.
I think
No.
or
Or the medical evidence to show
was
that
sick.
Okay. He was sick, yes. And he was
the
of
medical evidence on to show
medical
that
evidence. Medical, yes.
to show that he was ill.
And
And surrounded firearms license and passport as Mida said.
no, that was not the reason why bail was given. Bail was given was because of his advanced age. He was 80 years old. And of his medical treatment, like what you rightly say so. See, he required medical treatment, which the court found that could not be provided by the prison if he's not given bail. But on top of that, on top of his advanced age, because what would make him available for bail is that his situation puts him under the proviso yang I cakap tadi. The proviso that number one, a woman, number two, 16 years old, or number three, sick person. So which proviso do you think that the court take into consideration in giving him the bail? Woman, 16 years old, or sick person?
Proviso.
Exactly. Because this proviso comes under the third fact or the third point under non-bailable offense when to give bail. The third point for non-bailable offense for the court to give bail is that the court, despite having grounds to believe that he is guilty, but if there is a proviso that if one of the proviso is applicable to him or to the accused at that time, then the ground to believe that he is guilty should not be considered. The proviso should take precedence over the fact whether the court has grounds to believe he is guilty ke tak. You got it? Despite the fact having reasonable ground that he is guilty, but if he falls or if one of the provisos is applicable to him, then bail should be given, which means the proviso would override the reason or would override grounds yang exist to make the court believe that he is guilty. If you look at again, I want you to read up Balwan Singh. If you look at what Augustine Paul said, I might ask you in the next class, whoever I might call, with regard to what we discussed just now, Augustine Paul said the court, the grounds why he came up of his decision to give bail was that he was 80 years old and required medical treatment. Why? The court said, he said, as per or in relation to what we discussed just now, the court is not concerned. The court is not concerned as to whether there are reasonable grounds to believe whether the accused is or is not guilty of the offense. So what it goes to show here is that in a situation of applying for a bail and where taking into consideration what Justice Wilkinson said just now, there must be exceptional and very special reason. Then you can give bail for non-bailable offenses. Taking that into consideration, Augustine feels that his advanced age of 80 years, Balwan Singh advancing age of 80 years, plus his required medical treatment puts him under the special or exceptional circumstances mentioned by Justice Wilkinson. And this also comes under the proviso of 388 tadi, that out of that three, he falls under the sick person category. So having this situation, it overrides everything else, especially overrides whether the court has grounds or not to believe he is guilty of that offense. No, the court put that aside. The court will have to look at this. If they fall under this provision, if it falls under the proviso, then the rest should be looked aside. Bail should be given. Got it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's Balwan Singh.
So,
Yes.
if I may recap, basically in this case, the court does not take into consideration whether there are grounds to believe that whether Balwan himself is guilty or not, but the court stated or upheld that the proviso in section 388 subsection 1 will override the fact that whether there is a reasonable ground to believe that he is guilty or not lah. Macam itulah saya maksudnya.
Yes. It sounds easy, but in actual sense, it is not easy to do so. It's not that easy to convince the court to do that. Like Justice Wilkinson said, it takes exceptional and special situation. So you don't find that usually in your daily cases. Okay? It is very hard to show, unless of course you can show she's a woman, especially if they're pregnant or 16 years old. Remember what's the latest case that applies this 60-year-old despite being charged for murder?
Suraya.
Two boys were let out on bail because they're under 16. What case was that?
So
The Cradle Fund punya CEO, remember? Anak dia 2 orang bawah 16 kan?
Yes.
The court grant bail as well. Hisham Tepotik went and argued they are under 16. So based on that, it comes under the proviso tadi, under 388, the proviso, remember?
Yes.
The murder of the Cradle Fund punya CEO. Hisham Tepotik went and argued that. The court allowed that. And also for the mother. The Hisham Tepotik also went and argued that the mother is a woman. And if you let the 16-year-old boys out, having a father already being dead, then you need the mother, the woman as a mother to take care of the 16 years old boys. So the court bagi lagi the bail to the woman. Remember, a mother and 2 sons were charged kan? Betul tak?
betul.
But bail was given because they fulfill the proviso.
Sir,
Yes.
so correct me if I'm wrong. Yang the bill to be given to a mother who has a child tu, dia bukan dia punya condition yang kalau anak tu 5 years old ke bawah ke? And court memang tak ambil tak taken into account ke yang the wife has extended family to take care of the two
Yang mana?
kids.
Untuk yang mana?
Yang kes Samirah tu.
Kes Samirah tu, the court tak take into cost because kalau you get the proviso, can you read the proviso again please for 388? Siapa ni? Filzah ke? Who asked me the question just now?
Saya sir.
Siapa?
Filzah.
Okay, can you read 388 to us again please? Tadi Farhana baca kan, so can you read 388 then?
When any person accused of any non-bailable offence is arrested or detained without
Okay, the
warrant.
proviso, you go straight to the proviso.
If it appears to such officer or court at any stage of the investigation, inquiry or trial, as the case may be, that there are no reasonable ground for believing that the accused has committed a non-bailable offence, but there are sufficient grounds for further inquiry into his guilt, the accused shall, pending such inquiry, be released on bail or at the discretion of that officer or court, on the execution by him of a bond without sureties for his appearance, as hereinafter provided. An officer or a court releasing any person on bail under subsection 1 or 2 shall record in writing the reasons for so doing.
So the proviso, if you look at 388, I think Farhana mentioned it when she read it. The proviso was a woman. A woman. Dia tak ada 5 years old with taking care of 5-year-old kid, whatever. A woman. And the next one is 16 years old. And the third one is a sick person. Okay. These proviso are independent of each other.
So it will be or instead of and, kan sir?
Yes. But one thing was not a woman, neither was he 16 years old, but he was given bail because he was sick. So these three proviso are independent of each other. You can either be one. The same goes to the situation, I think, yang mana you cakap he has a 5-year-old kid to take care of. But if you look at the proviso, the main reason why he was given bail, she was given because she's a woman. See? But the fact that having a 5-year-old kid to take care of could be an additional point for the court to consider. But as far as proviso is concerned, if you look at the proviso, apply the proviso, then you can see why she was given a bail was because she was a woman. That's it. The proviso says must be a woman.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, sir.
Does that answer your question then?
Yes.
Okay. That's Balwan Singh, and then there's another case. We are coming to an end, right? Ours is until 5, betul tak?
Betul.
So, got quite a few more to go. Maybe we can sambung nanti in the next class before we go into summary judgment. Let's see if next class I can cover summary judgment ke tak. But whatever it is, we'll try to finish bail as much as we can. My notes, based on my notes, I only have the 6 or 5 pages saja lagi. So, before we go, I'll stop here. But before we go, can you write this down, please? Chong Siu Yong. I do not have the citation of the case. It's Chong, C-H-O-N-G, Siu, S-I-E-W-Y-O-N-G. Chong Siu Yong. And then another case is PP against Lechumi. I do not have I think you would have that in your case list. PP against Lechumi. PP against Lechumi should be interesting. Cik Su binti Daud, CHE apostrophe Su SU binti Daud, and okay, that's it. These 3 cases for Chong Siu Yong. Arhan, is there Arhan? Arham Raihani or something, tak nampak.
Yes.
Can you read the case nanti for us dalam next class ni, Chong Siu Yong ni?
Boleh.
Okay. And for PP against Lachumi, can I have Hanisa Hamdan? Is Hanisa is it? Hanisa Hamdan?
Yes, sir.
Look up PP against Lachumi.
Okay.
And what's the other case tadi?
Cik Su binti Daud.
Cik Su siapa ni? Siapa yang sebut Cik Su tadi?
Abdul Had, yeah.
Can you read that case for us, Had?
Okay, sure.
Okay, I won't remember siapa yang I minta hari ni, so you have to volunteer nantilah sebab I tak ingat siapa I minta untuk baca case mana. Okay, I just call out the case and somebody yang dah sebut nama tadi, can you tell us the facts plus the decision by the court with regard to bail? Boleh? The next class.
Boleh.
Can you three do that?
Boleh.
Okay, if there's any other task that I will ask you to do for bail, I'll inform Filzah nanti. And if there are any questions you nak tanya with regard to that, compile it up and then tunggu for the next class lah. Boleh? Most probably we'll go into bail sekejap, finish the bail, and then after that we'll go into summary judgment in the next class. Okay?
Boleh, sir.
Boleh.
I hope today's session has helped you to understand more on bail after your lecture on it this week. Have a good weekend and stay safe. Take care.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Assalamualaikum.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Waalaikumsalam.
sir.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.